What's happening YouTube, Suraj here, and Sony just announced a brand new camera. They announced it through a live event which happened at 6:30 in the morning today. That's right, I woke up at 6:30 to catch the event live so that I could make this video, but also just because I was curious because I love keeping up with Sony. So the camera is called the A7C, in which C stands for cutie, because this is the best looking camera they've made till date in my opinion. I love the silver and black colorway. It looks very Fuji, it looks very retro. I'm honestly surprised more people are not talking about it. Seriously though, the camera is an entirely new lineup. C stands for compact. It is essentially an A7 III in a form factor very similar to the A6600. It's an entirely new lineup. So far they've had the A6000 series, the A7S series, the A7 series, and the A7R series. This is entirely new. This is the first generation of the A7C. They claim that it is the smallest full-frame mirrorless camera in the world. Right now, technically, we have the Sigma FP, which is a little bit smaller, but this one comes in at 510 grams. To give you some perspective, the A7 III is 650 grams and the A6600 is 503 grams. So it's actually pretty mind-blowing that they managed to fit so much tech into a form factor that's just slightly more heavy than the A6600. Starting price is $1,800 for body only. Now I know many of you have been keeping up with leaks and rumors, and some of you may have been as crazy as me and may have got up at 6:30 to watch the event live, but for those of you that are not aware of what's happening, I would like to just quickly go over the specs so we're on the same page. So the A7C comes with a 24 megapixel sensor. It has the same Bion's X processor that's found on the A7 III. It has 693 phase detection autofocus points and 425 contrast detection autofocus points. There's 15 stops of dynamic range, there's S-Log 2 and 3 plus HLG, there's in-body image stabilization. In terms of resolutions and frame rates, you have 4K 30, Full HD 120, 8-bit video, there's no 10-bit, there's no 10-bit 422, there's no 4K 60. 4K 30 is the maximum. It uses the same battery as the A7 III, which is the FZ100, and according to Gerald Undone in his video, he mentioned that he was able to record for 3 hours continuous at 4K 24 FPS on a single charge. So I think that's pretty impressive, and according to him, it didn't overheat either. And finally, the biggest feature probably, I guess, is the fact that it has a flip out screen. It flips sideways like the A7S III and not upwards like the A6000 series of cameras. It has a single SD card slot, and as I said, pricing starts at $1,800 US for body only. I don't think Indian pricing is out yet, but if you convert that, that's going to be roughly 1.3 lakhs, so expect it to be in that same price range. I'd also like to quickly compare the A7 III to the A7C. I don't physically have the cameras with me here, but I just want to compare them on paper from what I've seen online. Firstly, starting off with something super small, the door that's protecting the I/O, the ports on the A7C, is much better than the one on the A7 III. I know it's not like a super big feature, but if you've used the A7 III or any of the A6000 series cameras, you know that the door feels like it's going to break at any point. This is not the case with the A7C, and even if you flip the screen out, you can still completely access the I/O, so that's really good design. Second, obviously it has a flip out screen, which the A7 III does not. The A7C is also a much smaller package. The A7 III is relatively bigger, and there is no recording limit or overheating issues on the A7C. On the other hand, on the A7 III, you have two extra custom buttons. You have two SD card slots. Now, who's this camera for? Honestly, I'm having a hard time kind of figuring out exactly which type of consumer is going to buy this, because this would have been a super easy recommendation if it weren't so closely priced to the A7 III. The A7 III starts at $2,000 like on Amazon and stuff, Amazon US, but you can get it for like $1,800 in most places. Even in India, I know that you can get a deal for like 1 lakh, maybe not 1 lakh, but 1.1 lakh or 1.2 lakhs. You can easily get it for that price, since the camera has been out for almost 2 years now. So since it's so closely priced to the A7C, I don't know exactly if I would recommend it over the A7 III. Sure, if you want a smaller package, maybe go for the A7C. If you already have an A7 III, obviously don't upgrade. It makes no sense. Don't get the A7C. Similarly, if you have an A6600, I don't think that you should be upgrading. Yes, the A7C has a full frame sensor. That's a huge difference, but for most people, I think they don't need a full frame sensor. People think that they do, but most people don't realize that they don't need a full frame sensor. Personally, I will not be getting the A7C. I use A6300 on my day-to-day basis. That's my personal and work camera, and I will directly be upgrading to the A7S series cameras, the A7S III probably, because I think that makes much more sense. You will actually see a significant difference in terms of sheer video quality, because on the A7S III you get much better video bit rates, much better codecs and all that stuff, whereas in the A7C you're getting practically the same video quality as the A6000 series cameras or the A7 III, because it still has the same 8-bit video, it still has 100 megabits per second video recording. So in terms of sheer video quality, resolution and frame rates, you won't really be seeing any major difference compared to the A6000 cameras or even the A7 III for that matter. One more thing to keep in mind is that it doesn't just start and stop at the body. You have to get full frame lenses for your full frame camera, and full frame lenses are quite expensive. But even that aside, one more thing I'm actually genuinely concerned about is if the setup is going to be front heavy. Now what I mean by that is that the A7C body, and since it's going to be similar to the A6600, and since it's only 510 grams, I feel like it's going to be super front heavy when you pair it up with full frame lenses. For example, this is a A6300 and currently on it is a 85mm lens. Now the body itself is super light, but with this lens it is super heavy. The setup is super heavy and the camera is very front heavy. Now this is fine if you're going to be vlogging like that, or if you're going to be putting the camera on a gimbal, or if you're going to leave it on a tripod and record, or if you're going to be behind the tripod and you're going to record. But if you're going to be doing photography with it, it's going to be incredibly hard to go at it for long hours. I find it extremely taxing to use this particular setup with such a heavy lens and a small body for a long period of time. So I'm genuinely concerned if that's going to be an issue with the A7C. So if you're genuinely interested in buying the camera, I would definitely recommend watching reviews. Another thing that a lot of people are saying is that they should have been 4K 60 on the A7C, and I kind of agree with that. I feel like that would have been the one big thing that would differentiate the A7C from the A7 III. A lot more people would buy it, but at the same time I kind of understand why they didn't do it. Obviously they're not going to give you a feature that they've most likely preserved for the A7 IV, because then if they give it to you on the A7C, fewer people will buy the A7 IV. So that's something to keep in mind. Another conspiracy that's been going around is that Sony's doing all this, they're launching the A7C because they're ditching APS-C altogether. I kind of see where you're coming from. They haven't really been doing much in terms of making lenses for the APS-C system in a long time. But I don't know, I don't have any specific thoughts on that. I'd love to hear what you guys think. I'm pretty neutral on that take. But yeah, that's basically the A7C. I feel very strange about this camera. On one end I feel it's quite good because it's compact and it has the same features and same tech as the A7 III, but since it's so similarly priced, it's kind of hard to just straight up recommend. It's not a black and white thing. It's hard to recommend, and I just feel that if it were priced a little bit lower, right now it's a good value for money camera for sure. If you thought the A7 III was good value for money, this is automatically good value for money. But it's just a little bit hard to recommend after seeing the A7S III, after the A7 III being around for so long. I just feel like if it were priced a little bit lower, maybe even $1,500 US, that would have been perfect. So yeah, that's what I think about the A7C. Those are my first impressions. I don't think I'll be getting the camera, but yeah, if I do, I would definitely make more content on it. I would love to hear what you guys think. If you're an existing Sony user, do you plan on upgrading to the A7C? If you're not an existing Sony user, what do you think of the A7C? Would you get it over the A7 III? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let's strike a discussion in the comments down below. If you enjoyed watching this video, give it a like. If you did not, vote it down. Let me know in the comments why I didn't like it. If you're new to the channel, I make videos about video production, photography and tech. I talk a lot about Sony cameras, so if you're into any of that, consider subscribing to the channel. My name is Suraj. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you later.